Okay, today is May 29th, 1982. I'm Opal Brown Garrity of Oklahoma City, taping at the Osage County Fairgrounds in Pawhuska, Oklahoma, for Living Legends of the Oklahoma Historical Society and Oklahoma Christian College. We today have a member of the Tinker family, or a friend of the Tinker family, and we're going to let her introduce herself and spell her name, and then go on from there.
My name is Dica Jane Mitchelll. I was Hildebrand from the James Hildebrand family, Osage. There were 10 children in the family altogether. My mother and father didn't stay together till we were all adults. They were divorced, but we went to school. Most of us went to school at the Osage boarding school that belonged to the Osages. And I went in 1906, and it was a nice school. I don't know where they got their teachers from, but they were good teachers, and most of them knew how to handle and work with Indian children. My teacher, Mary R. Pollock, was a strange person, and she was rather funny, and the boys liked to tease her. But she knew how to handle those Indian boys, and she didn't hesitate if she thought they needed punishing for teasing her or writing on the board when they should be doing something else. She would bat them over the head with a slate or a cold pitcher of water and stand them in the corner when it was winter time so they'd get dry by the heated red ears. But we had nice plays. She put on plays. She saw that we learned well and did her shows. And Pansy Wallace in the second grade was a music teacher. I don't know where she was from, but she was a very good music teacher. We had also a Mandolin Club at the school, and they had a very good Mandolin Club. And there was one time there, we had an Indian lady who was a teacher. I think Edna Goodbear was educated somewhere in Philadelphia. Now, whether she was adopted by some white person who educated her there, I don't know. But I had her in the third grade. Then we had Mary Hicks, was a good teacher, and I don't remember the first name of Pendergrass, but we had a teacher by that name. And they were all good teachers. I think we had a good chance at learning English and doing things that other children learned in the public schools of Pawhuska. And we had lots of sports. We had good, Jake Duran was the boys' disciplinarian, and he was able to handle the boys at all ages, and he knew how to command respect and got it, and he was a good athlete himself. So he worked with the boys, and we had good football teams. We had lots of football games, and we were winners a great many times, and we had baseball and tennis. They played tennis. And they learned, by the way, they had trades there. They had a good laundry. You learned how to do laundry work, every faction of doing laundry. And they had husbandry and yard, husbandry, where you learn how to take... Horticulture. They learned how to handle animals, cows, horses, calves, raising calves, and we had fruit trees, so we had lots of fruit. We had a bakery, had a very fine bakery, and the boys worked in the bakery, and oh, that homemade bread used to smell so good, wafting through the windows of the bakery shop. When we were out playing, we could smell that fresh bread baking. I've never forgotten it. Well, then, let's see.
Where was that school?
This was the Osage boarding school that went by that name until 1912. I believe they said it was 1912 when it was closed down. Now, I left there maybe at that stage, I left when I was 12 years old.
Was it in Pawhuska?
It was in Pawhuska up on the hill where the agency is, on the ground where the agency was. It was all fenced off, and it was, I don't know how many acres there were of it, but there were many acres, and that was the Osage Indian School. And the buildings were the largest of any buildings I have seen anywhere.
When was that?
1906 is when I went to school.
Was it a religious school?
No. We sang hymns in the morning when we went to chapel. First thing, there was a Catholic school in the town of Pawhuska, and any of the children and the priests, I've forgotten which order of priests it was that came to Pawhuska in the early days, but they got a lot, I would say the majority, of full-blood Indian Osage Indians are Catholic. So they went to I've forgotten the father's name at this date, but he was there many years and became a close friend with the Osage families. So he learned the children when they were first born, and he kept them through adulthood. And we had the St. John school for boys and the St. Louis school for the girls. So they had very fine schooling too. And that was different from the Osage boarding school. We were of all divisions, what's the name, of religions.
Tribes?
Pardon?
Were you different tribes?
There was only Osage. Only Osage went to the Osage boarding school, and the other schools, the St. John and the St. Louis, just Osages. A piece of land was given. I don't know who the contract was made with, but it was made through the agency, Osage Indian Agency. Whether the council signed it or the Secretary of the Interior, I'm not aware who signed the lease. But land was given to the Catholic order for those schools, the St. Louis and the St. John. And they still own it today, I assume. Then 1912 is when the Osage boarding school was abolished, as I understand it. I went away to Riverside, California. My two older sisters had gone to Riverside, California, to Sherman Institute in 10. My mother took them out there. My mother was educated. I'll have to tell you about her. She was Cherokee and is on the Cherokee roll. Her father, Grandpa John Grass McIntosh, was at his death the captain of the flag and the keeper of the fires of the Katua Society, Cherokee. That's the first Katua Society of the Cherokee tribe. And
How do you spell that Katua?
Keetoo, I think, WAH. I may have forgotten, but it's something like Katua. And the original order were the keeper of the original Wampum belt. There are 7 clans to that Cherokee tribe, and my people belonged to the Paint tribe. But my father, at his death, had the minutes of that society, the Katua Society, and they are the keeper today of the Wampum belt. That was the original belt. They were granted this society in Congress of the United States of America, so that they were legally a society. And my grandfather went with Levi Gritz, and the name escapes me now. His brother Gritz, Gritts, and my grandfather went as delegates to the Congress and from the tribe, and they were given a huge American flag by Abraham Lincoln. And I mixed up on the flag because there were 2 trips made, and the first flag was burned up in the home of my grandfather, John Grass McIntosh, when his home was burned down. But they were delegated for a second trip to represent the Catawba Society in Washington, and my grandfather went again. Levi and Bud Gritz is the other boy, and John Grass McIntosh. And by President Theodore Roosevelt gave them a huge silken gold-fringed flag. And my grandfather was the keeper of that flag upon his death. And New York reporters and the Catawba Society member, chosen delegate, was chosen to come and pick up the minutes from my grandfather at his death. And they got the minutes. My aunt gave them the minutes and the flag. And so my mother stemmed from that Cherokee. They came to Oklahoma with the first bunch from Georgia and the Carolinas when President Andrew Jackson gave the order for their removal. They took off. And so they did not come with the Trail of Tears group. They came before them, and they were called the first original group that came to Oklahoma. Some of them stopped off in the Smokies in Tennessee, and they are still lodged there. And they're a second group of the Cherokees. The original first group that was driven out, that my people came on from the Smokies and landed in different states, and then came on to Oklahoma. They landed in Oklahoma in 1907, before Oklahoma became a state. And they called them the Old Settlers. That first group were called the Old Settlers, and that my people that came belonged to that group. And there are many other, not many, 2 or 3, possibly 4 Catawba societies that have now formed. And there was a bunch, when I was back here last year, I didn't get down much in the Cherokee country. I was so busy taking care of some business up in the Osage country that I got down there 3 or 4 times, but I didn't have time to stay and find out some of the things I would like to have found out. I am a regular member of the Cherokee Society, the Historical Society. And so, anyhow, I have contacted with the agency there, and I am both a quarter, proof hasn't come out yet, but I really have more quantum of Indian blood from the Cherokee side, but it hasn't been proven yet, than the Osage side. But as it is on the rolls, I'm a quarter Osage and a quarter Cherokee Indian. And there's just 2 of us left of my family. And my sister is 86, and I'm 82 past. My birthday's March 22nd, 1900. I'm on the Osage roll. So what I say is from memory, and my memory is fairly good. I'm on the committee of the Osage group in California, and we have a society out there that's quite active, and we take part in all the affairs of the Osages. So that what I have said is true. And the Osage school was beneficial to all the Osages that went there. And there's fine things that I can remember that took place there, that I'm grateful for the knowledge that I gained there. It helped me to go forth in the world that I had to compete in and become a part of. And to this day, I'm interested in all affairs, Congress included, because I do not feel that the people that have been elected to the United States Congress, a lot of them, have not been qualified to tend to Indian affairs because they knew so little about Indians. And I belong to the AFTRA organization in California. That's American Federated Theater Artists of Radio and Television. And I'm an actress with SCG. We were converging with the SAG, but it didn't take place. It'll have to come next year in '83. So we want to educate the United States people that we've come integrated with, that the Indian had a soul. They had an institution of learning. Their theology was beautiful, and it was torn asunder way back when they had no books to tell them what to do, how to do it, where and when. But I belong to everything I can today where I feel what experience I have received from books and people I've met with, that I can help the younger people coming up to see with different eyes of the American people, see what the Indian's heart is. It is an educated heart, but it's been hurt, and it needs healing in many places. And I hope to live long enough to gain an organization that will keep that going, so that one day you won't be able to tell one sister or another sister or brother from another brother. They'll be one and the same for unitedness.
I'd like to ask you a few questions here that came to mind when you were talking. And well, let's just go back, and I'll get 2 or 3 of these, and then by that time maybe you can go on with something with the rest of it. Now, you were talking about the schools in your Mandolin Club. Was that a music club?
The what?
The Mandolin Club.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I wasn't old enough at Osage boarding school to join with the Mandolin Club there. But my family were musical. Both my father could play by ear. I'll have to tell you a little bit about that. Maybe it'd be all right here. I was visiting back there just in a few years. He died in 1977. He was 77. I've forgotten his birth date, but he was 77 when he died. I was sleeping in a sultry afternoon, trying to sleep, mosquitoes and flies and everything on the Bird Creek. And so I heard this music, a violin, and I awakened. And I'm musically educated, although I don't play the violin. And I said, where's that? It doesn't sound like the TV to me. That sounds close. So I had to get up and see. I'm curious anyhow. And it was my father fiddling in the living room. He just took a notion to fiddle, and he was sitting in there fiddling. My father. He never was taught music. I think he left school when he was somewhere in the 3rd grade. Well, the Mandolin Club that I was a member of, and we did many public works, was in Riverside, California. My sisters had already gotten there before I got there. So they were there for 5 years. I went for 3, I think. And I went there in 1912. So I became also a member of the Mandolin Club. I was one of the first mandolins We had first and second mandolin and mandolas and guitars. And we played at the Glenwood Mission Inn, which was a tourist place from everywhere, from London and the continental of the world. The people came and tourists to see the Glenwood Mission Inn. We always played there during Christmas, their festivals. It was a Spanish place. The Juniper, Father Sierra, in the early days when he was establishing the Catholic bells and the missions along the California coast, established this mission, the Glenwood Mission Inn. We played there many times. I was chosen by my teacher to recite there and did. And also I served tea there in an Indian costume. I had very long hair. And I served tea there for the Glenwood Mission Inn. They wanted an Indian child. And then the club. We also played, and there are some pictures somewhere, but I don't have one. During the fairs, they had the Orange Fair in California. They still have it today. I don't know whether they call it the fair or Orange Fair or what. Used to be held in San Bernardino. And they made floats, a parade, and the whole works of our athletes that we had from Sherman Institute and the Mandolin Club. And we rode on floats, playing our mandolins, the club and all. And we got fine music training. And that was a coeducational school out there, too. And so there was many printing and carpentering, laundering. They had a hospital. It wasn't one of the top-rated hospitals, but it took care of a lot of things. The sewing, we had 3 different sewing departments, the mending for the little girls, and where you learn to begin to use a machine to sew on uniforms. I worked in that department. And then there was the finishing department that made all the girls' uniforms. They knew how to sew. And boys had all kinds of departments they worked in. That was a very fine school. And I also played in the school orchestra. The Mandolin Club played with the school orchestra. So I'm very grateful for all the music I had, because it is a fulfillment in the soul of a person who needs music for food and thought.
Was this school a religious school or government school, the Riverside School in California where you went?
No, you could belong to any denomination. There was a Catholic church adjacent from the grounds, just across the road from the grounds, from Riverside grounds, on the girls' department. And the Catholics who were Catholics there went there. And the other denominations, they went to different... I belonged to a lady. She used to come from Redwood. She came from Redlands, California. She was very spiritual. She was a beautiful woman in thought and spirit. And she took us to, what do they have, conventions? Not Catholic, but religious conventions. She took just 4 or 5 of us. And so I got experience along that line, and we learned the Bible, and parts of it has stayed with me, but I don't read the Bible like I used to, but I haven't forgotten many parts that have stuck with me, and it helped me over the rough spots in life.
Then it was religious sponsored, or was it sponsored by the Osages?
Osages had nothing to do with Riverside. That was the Riverside School was one of the schools that was taken care of by the United States government. I'm not in my best voice today. I'm froggy. They had Sherman Institute of Riverside, California. They had Chilocco Indian School at where was Chilocco? In Kansas, wasn't it? Oklahoma. Chilocco, Oklahoma. What am I saying? And Haskell Institute in Kansas. And Carlisle had been, that closed many years ago when Jim Thorpe was their hero. And I don't know what year it closed, but I don't really know anything about that, other than it was a very fine school and very athletically well known throughout the United States. Our Indian boys have always been athletic. It seems today that they don't have the prodding and the trials or opportunities, maybe, because they don't have enough money to buy clothes, to buy shoes, to join organizations that are athletic. And I'm sorry about that, and they're so talented. They have so much talent in their hands and in their bodies that needs to be brought out. They don't even know sometimes that they're talented because they've never had a trial or a test or been given an opportunity to show what they might be able to do, and they're timid. They become timid people. That is not the Indian way. They're not pushers, and they've gone backward. And I don't like to see what I see.
Okay, I agree with you there. I've always said they were not pushers, and I certainly have always, I've pushed them myself, the others being I was a teacher and taught them for a long, long time. Now, have you been in California all this time since you went to school there, or did you come back here and then go back to California?
I left in 1915 and came back to Oklahoma, but I didn't stay around long. The town, even though I was young yet, the being away had opened my eyes to another part of the world. I saw things out there. I saw the beautiful flowers, and I also the matron of the building which I lived in was called the Minnehaha building. That was for the medium-sized girls, and we had two companies there. We had companies, and I was captain of Company E. That was the smaller company in the Minnehaha home. And she took me at noontime. I started to tell you, didn't finish. I think that the tourists, Riverside was a real tourist town. It was a beautiful city, and though small, it was clean and beautiful. And they came to see Glenwood Mission Inn and to see Riverside, California, Sherman Institute. And they came to the school. And so I was chosen to take these tourists around. And they used to ask me questions. Did we wear our feathers when we went to the table to eat? Did we take off our feathers when we went to bed? And did we wear shoes at all times? There were funny little questions that I had to answer, and I never laughed. I answered them.
You mentioned being a Hildebrand. Are you from the Hildebrand Mill group over on Flint Creek? Do you know about that? The Hildebrand Mill, it was a German mill that was over on Flint Creek, and it's still there. It's been there, yes. It's been there for years and years.
I don't know about that. John Hildebrand, my father's father, we discovered that he's on the Cherokee roll. So he had Cherokee blood. And I've discovered that some of the Hildebrand names are spelled HilderbrandT. That's in Germany. They're drug stores, all kind of stores. They have lots of them. It's a common name. But our name is spelled Hildebrand. No R or no T. And there is also spelling of Hildenbran. I think they were Scandinavian or something on that tribe.
And you also mentioned McIntosh. Now, aren't there some Creek Indians by the name of McIntosh?
Yes, there are. But we don't belong to the McIntosh clan or tribe. We are not Creek at all. We're just pure Cherokee. And I have a rundown on some of the Cherokees that it's quite a history of them too. I haven't got all of it down so that I could even mention it, I think. But they, in the early days, you see, they remained because there's so many degraded Europeans that came over, and they attacked the Cherokees and burned their camps and diseased them and stole from them and everything and butchered them. So the Cherokees fought as well as they could. And when they couldn't fight, well, they ran and hid in the mountains. So they are, there's a McIntosh clan that was there that became very wealthy, but I don't know. I got one of the books and haven't got around to. So they are, there's a McIntosh clan that was there that became very wealthy, but I don't know. I got one of the books and haven't got around to reading it thoroughly. But one of the McIntoshes owned an island and ruled as an emperor. They were under King James what was he, the fifth? King James V of England, when they got under that rule, the Cherokees did. Instead of belonging to the United States, they didn't want to belong to the United States because they said they were unprotected. And they formed a constitution, and I've got a copy of that and some other small papers that I haven't had much time to put them in order. But they took them a long time to become educated. They didn't want to. They just wanted to war and fight for themselves and live in the hills of Carolinas and Georgia and Tennessee until finally their spirit maybe was broken, and they figured, well, it might serve them well if they would go along with the other people that they had to live with. And so finally, when they did start, they they turned themselves inside out, you might say. So history says that it was amazing how quickly they did turn, and they became good farmers, those that wished to do it. But today, even, there are some very poor Cherokees who wish to remain, believe it or not, as they were many 30, 50, 60 years ago. Little small plot of ground, rocky, won't grow anything, and do little chores like little gardening. Maybe they'll go work for their some neighborhood who can give them some vegetables to eat on, and they live very poorly and thrive on it. I don't know how, but they do. Down in the Cherokee country, the beautiful Ozarks. It's beautiful down there.
Did you marry and raise a family in California? And how long have you been there this time?
I've been in this one place since 1936. I was married to an actor, Ted Lorch. He was of the legit stage back east in the early days. And he had a group, a company of his own. And they traveled the old way when actors weren't respected very much by the townspeople, that they were poor and they got along the best they could. And that wasn't good. But they managed to survive, and my husband, Lorch, was one of the early fighters when the theater was battling to grow up and to grow into the thing that it has grown to be today for the American stage actor and in the entertainment field. He was, when Samuel Gompers, they changed the society. They called it the Society Ball. The Society Ball was held, and that's where a great fight took place because they wanted to form equity at that time, and I think they did. I have sort of forgotten the story. I listened to him tell it to me before his death, but lots of it has passed from my memory. I'm sorry, but he was a matinee idol in the days of entertainment throughout the West, and Denver was one of the main cities. I can't remember the man's name now who had the company. 1908, I think, 7, 8, 9, he was a matinee idol, and he put on 5 shows a day in Denver. And he told me about how he used to get the newsboys enthused after the show before they go to supper to a very wealthy lady's home in Denver who entertained them. She loved theater people. And he'd throw quarters and nickels and dimes out for the newsboys. And so he had the newsboys on his side. And I met a judge of Denver through writing and through some of the old actresses that gave him my address and told him I was a surviving widow of Ted Lorch. And he wrote to me, and we corresponded for several years until he passed away. And his wife wasn't interested, so the correspondence lagged and finally died out. But he told me about what a great actor Ted Lorch was. And he was a photographer, he and his father, and he was a young boy in those days, so his father taught him all there was to know about photography. And so until he later got into law and became a lawyer and a judge. And of course he was, at his death, they honored him, gave a great parade in Denver for him. I've forgotten the year, but about 1960 something. I've forgotten the year now. And then his health failed him, and so I heard no more of him. But he knew Ted in the old days when he used to come out to his aunt's home. It was a big home. She was a maiden aunt, and she loved actors, and she entertained them. And he told about one time he took Ted, he tried to get him interested in fishing, and Ted was a game sport, but he was no fisherman. He went with this man and did all he could to fish, but he couldn't fish very well, so he gave that up. And so he wanted to know all I could tell him about Ted. He was a great actor. He went by the Great Russian Actor. He was billed in the old days.
Was he really Russian?
He was real Russian. He came from a real Russian family. His aunt was she's huge. She wore brocaded satins and long puffy, what do you call those puffy sleeves, and with lace on them, dog collar, all that. She was Austrian, and she came to the Russian country. See, Russia was, who were they warring with? Well, there was a Russia, huh?
Maybe Japan.
Well, 17, that came part. 1917, the Japan, but that was later. And but Ted came from a family, and being the boy when he was born, they got him back there when his father died and tried to keep him. But his mother had French and Irish, and she was from Illinois. And, of course, President Lincoln was from Illinois. And there was a lawyer that she got in touch with, that she got him to assist her with letters and all the necessary protocol that you have to go through, to get back, because they were going to keep, he was a boy, and they wanted him for that family to run the family. And so she fought to get him back. She says, he's an American citizen. And I never have forgotten how proud he was. And he became a Mason, and he always run up the flag for the Masons at their meetings. And at home, I put a place on the porch. And after we went to his funeral, we put up the American flag after we buried him.
Did you have any children?
We had no children. He didn't have, a child was born to he and his first wife, and it died. As I say, they were very poor, penniless, you might say. They took up a collection in this little city where the baby died and was buried. The citizens, you might say, buried the baby. And they got out the best way they could. And it was sad in those days the way the actors had to make a living. They weren't respected at all, And it was hard for them sometimes to get into the hotels because they didn't want them.
You mentioned the Osage Society in California. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Yes, I'd like to do that. We have a very fine society. I don't know our membership right now, but I would say it is close to 200 or over. And I'm on their committee because they feel that I can remember and have a memory that is fairly good and help to mold our thinking out there in conjunction with our Osage Tribal Council. We fought them and had many arguments with them in the old days, but we have learned to kind of temper ourselves and to work with them better because we know united we can stand and ununited we will fall. So the organization we started in 1947. George Lapidie, a member of the Osage Council, figured out that if he could get the absentee ballot put over with all the people that lived outside of Osage County in Oklahoma, that he could keep going on the Osage Council. And he was right. We still have that absentee ballot that is used by people in Alaska, New York, California, Colorado, and points west and further. They can use the absentee ballot to vote. And with our organization, I see a lot of young faces. You won't know that they're Osage or Indian at all. There have been even a mixture of marriages, intermarriages. The boys have gone to Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and so forth. And I saw a few faces that were from those places. They were wives and may have had children. So in time, the Osage blood quantum will delineate. And we have regular general meetings for the General Assembly, and then we have committee meetings, and if we don't hear from the council, we write them and communicate by telephone with different members of the council. Each one of us contacts a member of the Osage Council and gets what information we can. Then we have a meeting and we put it all together and make decisions and write letters or do whatever we think is best, whatever our decisions are. And we're pretty well organized out there, and we're helpful to our council because we do try to work with them. Lots of times they're silent. They just feel like, well, I don't know what they feel like, really, that they're too busy, maybe, taking care of the tribal business to write extra letters. So that's why we telephone. And the telephone is a very communicable commodity for us to use because it's quick contact. And sometimes we need that. We have to write letters to the senators and our congressmen to tell them how we feel, because every 2 years the congressmen change, and 4 or 6 years for the senators. And we have to educate those people and that come in new, and they know nothing about the Osage tribe, and some of them care less. That may sound mean, but we have found that to be so. They know so little about the Indian, and they think one Indian is all Indian. It isn't so.
Are all the Osages around over the United States, are they under the Osage chief here?
No.
Are they under the council here?
No. No. Other Indians have their own councilmen. The Sioux have their own councilmen. They have 16, by the way. We have 8 councilmen, a chief and assistant chief. They have 16 councilmen, and the one is a chairman of the Sioux. The Crows and the Assiniboine Sioux, there are 7 different clans of the Sioux, 7.
Then you people out in California have no connection with the tribal government here in Oklahoma.
I really don't know how to answer what you mean.
Well, for instance, you belong to this California Council of Osages.
The California organization.
Organization, okay.
Member,
you're a member.
Osage tribe.
Okay, now, are those people in California who are Osages, do they have any connection with the Osage Council and governor here in Oklahoma?
Not the governor, but the Osage Council.
Osage Council.
Uh-huh. We're members of the tribe.
Yes.
They're members of the tribe.
Yes.
And no matter where you are, if you're a member of the Osage tribe, that councilman at Pawhuska, Oklahoma is your councilman.
Okay, that's what I was after right there.
Uh-huh. He's your councilman.
Okay.
And the superintendent at Osage Agency is my superintendent, his superintendent, and hers, because we're Osage. We're under that heading, Osage. Just Osage, no other Indian.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, then, of course, in New York it'd be the same way. If the people in New York who are Osages, they also would be under the council here in Pawhuska. Right. And Pawhuska is the center of the Osages.
It's the center, the base.
Okay. Now,
they must live here and attend. Any Osage councilman must be able to attend the Osage Council meetings. If he lives, one fellow that got on our mineral committee, Dudley Shannon, lived in Albuquerque for years. But when he got elected, he wanted to be on the council. He had to move from Albuquerque. He moved to Tulsa so he could commute by car up from Tulsa to the meetings. They have to be able to come to the Osage meetings when the one is held.
Okay, now, suppose he managed to come from Albuquerque. Could he continue to live at Albuquerque and belong to the Osage Council, or would he have to live in Oklahoma?
It'd be too expensive. He couldn't do it.
And it would be because of expense and not because of rules.
I think, I'm not sure, but I believe the wording is that they must be in close proximity where they can ably attend the council meeting when one is called.
Do you think being in California is an advantage over being in Oklahoma? I mean, so far as your tribe is concerned, or your culture is concerned?
Well, who's to say who's going to love California? And I've been out there, went to school out there in 1912. I fell in love with California then. I've never fallen out of love with California. And I said for years, not knowing that it would happen, where do you think I'm going to live? I'm going to live in the great San Fernando Valley, and that's just what I'm doing today. And these other people, maybe some of those young faces I see at our meetings were born there. That's their home. California is their home. They have Osage blood, which they had nothing to do with. Their mother and father did that for them. But they have the interest back here because they have Osage blood. So we try to get in touch with any child or person we find that is an Osage, has Osage blood or connection of some way, intermarriage maybe, to come and become interested in our organization, to build up our membership so that we can help the council when we go send letters or whatever, send our council to Washington to head when we're notified by the Secretary of the Interior that a hearing is to be called next week or certain day, and they must appear to represent the tribe on the bill. Does that answer it?
Yes. Yes, that answers it. Now, all of you share in the mineral rights in this part of the country. Is that right?
Not exactly. You share if you have been left in a will, named in a will of an original lottee or someone who was a member of the family of an original lottee. Or if you intermarried, you're not Osage, or you could be some other kind of Indian too, and intermarry. And your husband, Osage husband, died, so you inherited from him if he named you in his will.
And then your children would inherit it.
Well, I just learned something new at Tinker's meeting here. There was a bill passed. I don't know if I was sick at that time. I've been sick a great deal these last 3-4 years. This bill was passed in '78. I don't know when it was passed, who rigged